Focus, a state or condition permitting clear perception or understanding. A center of activity, attraction, or attention. This is taken from Webster's Dictionary. For those of you who know me well, you know that words and their meaning and the power behind them are. As I contemplate the implications of this definition, one thing becomes extremely clear to me extremely quickly. That is, focus may not be one of my most prominent strengths. As discovered this last trimester, it actually might be one of my most significant areas of improvement. When asked in my fellowship interview what I thought one of my greatest weaknesses was, I quickly admitted that I struggled to focus on what's directly in front of me due to my fascination with my dreams and goals and kind of the bigger picture of things. Pretty much anything that's not the task, conversation, or even sometimes the person in front of me. My name is Jenna Parker, Epsilon Fellow, Coach, and recovering human being from living out of focus. If I'm being totally honest with you right now, I'm still kind of wondering as I stand here why I chose to talk about such a glaring downfall of mine in front of a group of human beings who walk around the city of Denver as extremely focused individuals. But an overview of these last months without addressing this steep learning curve would be like you and I deciding to make a pan of brownies together and me throwing the dish in the sink, robbing you of the opportunity to lick the bowl. I'd be leaving the best part out. So, what brought on this such a steep learning curve and realization for me in the first place? Well, this trimester, I became a coach. For 4 years prior to moving here, I spent hundreds of hours in the classroom learning the most professional and effective ways to help people. Before graduation, I had close to 1,000 hours in the field, both internationally and locally. I excelled in my social work coursework. I walked the stage at graduation as ready as I ever could have been. I was eager, I was hopeful, and I was extremely naive. Fast forward to just about 6 months later, and I'm sitting in the back of this very room, waiting for my class's first day of training camp to begin. People of all shapes, sizes, and colors trickle into the room, and with a bit of apprehension, they find their seats just like you have. As coaches and training camp staff, we've prepared for this day. Collectively, we've spent hundreds of hours preparing to welcome 50 new faces into our community. Many of us have previous experience working in this arena. We've excelled in our coursework. We're as ready as we'll ever be. And as I sit in the back of the classroom waiting for this day to officially begin, my heart becomes overwhelmed. Because once again, I remember that I'm eager and I'm hopeful, but oh, I'm extremely naive. During the 7 weeks of training camp to follow, I was involved in over 30 coaching conversations. And although we can probably all agree that I'm hardly ever at a loss for words, these conversations didn't exactly come very easy. Why? Because addressing blind spots and downfalls of other people is extremely difficult. Coordinating schedules and problem-solving unexpected obstacles is really stressful. And engaging in the pain and the suffering of human experience brings aches and pains so deep that you didn't even know they existed. When I've researched, and by research I mean Googled, words opposite of focus, the two that came up the most were ignore and neglect. To ignore, to refuse to take notice of, to reject. To neglect, to give little attention or respect to leave undone or attended to, especially through carelessness. These are also taken from Webster's Dictionary. I believe that for most of us who live out of focus, our default is not necessarily to intentionally ignore, but most often we end up unintentionally neglecting. And that's exactly what I began to do. Not consciously, of course, but out of self-protection, I began to check out. To unplug when the topic of conversations got a little bit too hard. But I'm learning that too much is at stake when I allow my vision for myself and for other people to fall out of focus. My emotional detachment that often looks like indifference needs to be replaced with investment that results in deep-seated compassion. In his book, Compassion, Henry Nouwen said this: "Compassion asks us to go where it hurts, to enter into places of pain, to share in brokenness, confusion, and anguish. Compassion challenges us to cry out with those in misery, to mourn with those who are lonely, to weep with those in tears. Compassion requires us to be weak with the weak, vulnerable with the vulnerable, and powerless with the powerless. Compassion means full immersion in the of being human. Moving forward into this next trimester, I'll be taking on more responsibility as a coach, and I will aim to increase my productivity and intentionality with my leaders. I believe the best place for me to start is to ask more questions and to assume less that I have the answers. Instead, I will set out to listen well and to respond with compassion, even if I don't completely understand. As my heart has become more consumed with compassion for my leaders, I've also begun to feel more conviction for another population that we work with that are in need of just as much compassion and have just as much to offer to us. They're our allies. This trimester, I've begun to shave down the rough edges around ally training. Last trimester, the foundation was laid and the frame was built, and this time around, we were ready to put some paint on the walls. In the last 4 months, 22 allies have been through our training. We've made many changes and added materials, including the mini walkout that Christy referenced in her presentation, bringing in coaches to teach for each class, a resource guide that includes government and community resources, a revised ally handbook, and an ally notebook that includes a book list, an audio and visual list, and 11 printed articles that provide more information and perspective on social justice issues such as poverty, race, immigration, and mass incarceration. In order to keep training materials current and relevant, we always ask allies to review each of our trainings, letting us know what went well and what could have been better. Here's what our allies had to say this trimester. 50% of them voted that the ally panel, where we bring in current allies, was the most helpful part of the training. 35% suggested that we provide more specific examples throughout the duration of the training to make things a little bit more clear. And 73% rated our training at an 8 or above on a scale of 1 to 10. As you can see on the screen behind me, some of the statements left at the end of trainings commented on the content, the staff, and their excitement about being part of our program. In April, during Cultivate, I was given the opportunity to teach about this training. As I prepared, I began to contemplate the reasons for why I'm so passionate about this population. I came up with 2 major ones. The first one is, I've been there. I know what it's like to not know that you don't know, and I also know what it's like to find out that you don't know, but have no idea where to start. The second one is that allies are also humans in need of compassion and support. Their journey can also be long, exhausting, taxing, and confusing for them. My process thus far with ally training has taught me to hold what you create loosely and to always listen to the people on the receiving end, even if it's difficult to hear or hurt your feelings. I've also learned that I love to teach what I'm passionate about. Before coming to the fellowship, I've never really been put in the position or given the opportunity to teach, but the exposure that I've gotten this last trimester has really exposed a sweet spot for me, and has revealed, kind of a new area of growth for me. Moving forward, our desire for ally training is to define our vision and mission and to establish a rhythm of rolling development. We desire for our materials, experiences, and dialogue with our allies to continue to evolve to meet the needs of the people that walk through our doors. During these last months, my passion and love for words and communication was taken to a whole new level when I was tasked with multiple flyer and design projects. Although this was, somewhere along the line after beginning the fellowship, staff members at Cross Purpose figured out that I made cool slides, and somehow that turned into I also make cool flyers. Although that's not exactly the case, I did end up successfully creating 4 flyers and 5 miscellaneous design projects that were used for various marketing purposes within the organization. As a futuristic thinker, I'm excited to go after and accomplish tasks that will help to further the vision of the organization and of the fellowship program. This summer, I'll be transitioning into taking over the communications and social media for the fellowship. I'm looking forward to working with Taylor to make this changing of the guard successful. Last trimester, it was also my goal to send 2 letters to my supporters, and although I did not successfully accomplish this goal, I only sent 1 letter. I will again make it my goal this summer to send a letter every other month. Finally, I've been assigned various topics to research in order to increase productivity and effectiveness within the coaching department. I've also been asked to begin to vision cast for what coaching could look like for our allies in the future. I think it's safe to say that this past trimester has taught me more than I could ever include in a 10-minute presentation, clearly. Most importantly, I've learned that you can live externally engaged and still be internally out of focus. In order to reverse this potentially poisonous narrative, our external focus must be driven and motivated by our commitment to internal engagement first. It is when we understand this that our lives and work will begin to be characterized by the purest and most genuine acts of compassion. Thank you.